I wanted to revisit something. I want to revisit Dr. J's top 10 list because he mentioned a couple of guys on there who didn't win a ring, which just, I remember Nick Wright was trying to talk about nobody would put a top 10 list with a guys that didn't win a ring. Well, Dr. J had Elgin Baylor and Karl Malone on there. And that spoke volumes of what he felt. I don't have a problem when someone has a top 10 list that they value a player they respect. Oscar Robertson said Elgin Baylor was the greatest player he ever saw. And Elgin Baylor, if you look at some of the records, let the numbers speak. They old saying, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Elgin Baylor still got some historical numbers that ain't been touched, despite the advancements of shooting threes, despite the fact that, I guess now, what do you call the cats that play now? They're supposed to be super specimens, so that Elgin Baylor's records could last that long should speak volumes. But Dr. J got a top 10 list where there's two guys who didn't win a ring, which just goes to show that everybody ain't blown away by rings. Now, when we look about Karl Malone, he just lost two finals to Jordan and the Bulls. But he's considered one of the greatest power forwards ever, one of the greatest players ever. You gotta make the case he's top 30. I make the case he's in the 20s somewhere. I take Karl Malone over Scottie Pippen. If you consider that a hot take, feel free. But I'll tell you why. Because Karl Malone was a starter. Like, he really belonged. Like, you could respect his game kept getting better and better. Fade away, pick and roll. He was legit. And I thought overall as a player, that's how I looked at it. I think that when people get in totality, they have their own ways of how they look at people. And I think that you are entitled to your list. And if your list happens to include a guy who didn't win a ring, there's nothing wrong with that. But nothing wrong with that. Not at all. Because there's going to be a guy somewhere along the line where people aren't going to be, I know a lot of cats that if it wasn't for rings, Charles Barkley would be considered in a top 15 or 16. Because Barkley had the respect and he was bad. He just didn't finish, So there are guys that, but when LeBron James tried to go on about ring culture, every time he does a list, he always includes guys that won jewelry. Most cats tend to. But this Dr. J list was great because, yeah, he had Magic and Jordan and he had Kareem and Russell and Chamberlain and those guys. But he had Tiny Archibald who did win a ring. But he had Elgin Baylor and Karl Malone. And I thought that was very significant. I thought, like, that's great that he's doing that. Because everybody just to say the same one, and I'm not saying it to be a troll or anyone that just say it just to make it sound cool, but I'm trying to say that, hey, you can have a particular favorite player that didn't win a ring that you consider one of the greatest ever that belongs on the list. Just like in football. A lot of people got Dan Marino ahead of a lot of quarterbacks. He's in my top 10 all time, a quarterback. So there's guys that I put him over. Again, like a receivers. For me, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens are the second and third best. Only Jerry Rice is ahead of them as far as receivers. So it all depends on what your criteria is. Everybody's criteria ain't the same. And it's good to have this debate. Somehow with basketball, it came down that you got to have all this. It doesn't hurt your argument. And that's what you play to do. But there are great players who didn't win. And, there are tables to it. But then there's also personal opinions and feelings about it. And if you compile a list, you'll see that there are guys that probably didn't win, but they'll make up your top 15, top 25. I have a cutoff point. If you're in that 25 to 30 range, especially in that 25 range, 1 to 25, that means that you're the top of the first tier. That's how I look at it. And if you're top of the first tier, we can debate you. We can put you higher. We can rank you high or low because you stand out. So that should count for something. But anyway, I just want to talk about Dr. J's top 10 NBA list, and he had two guys who didn't win a ring. So again, that spoils the situation that you can be great and put in that mix if you feel that way. All right, wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. Share if you like, stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. In my one time. Peace.